We're recording. Okay.
Good morning, Don.
Welcome to the introduction for It's Your Money. Pete and I are going to go through this. I'm going to share my screen so that we can all see what we're looking at here, and share that and go live. Okay. So Pete, interject anytime you want through this. Basically, we're starting out with an overview in terms of what's going on. Here's what the class is about. These are interesting and challenging times. I have left this slide in simply so the page numbers stay the same for the handout material. We're not going to go through it right now. So Pete, why don't you talk about the class?
We started these classes approximately 20 plus years ago, and it was that I found that when I was at Long Beach State University with highly intelligent individuals who knew very little about money. And at Long Beach State, when I was hired, the benefits were absolutely excellent. And you had 110 different companies to choose from for your retirement plan. And in talking to people as to which plan and which company they chose, they didn't seem to care. And I ended up always the conversation with, hey, but it's your money. And that's how we got the name of the program. And the idea being is that there's not too many places where you can go to learn about money from a neutral setting without having somebody sell you anything. And so we created the It's Your Money, It's Your Estate program through Long Beach State. And when I left Long Beach State to go to work for the Orange County Red Cross, we brought it with me, and we took it out to the community, and we got many more charities involved. So some of our past charitable sponsors, such as the American Heart Association, Chapman, Chalk, Financial and Estate Literacy is our nonprofit that we formed that gives the workshop series. In Defense of Animals, Laguna Canyon Foundation, Orange Coast College Foundation, Orange County Ronald McDonald House, Orange County the United Way, Salvation Army, Susan Coleman, and the Orange County Boys and Girls Club, and Laguna Beach Seniors. Most of your financial workshops are sponsored by financial institutions. And so these financial institutions want your business. Charities are the sponsors because they need your money in order to do their mission. And we, as the charitable sponsors, we think it's a good thing to give. And charitable sponsors have agreed not to follow up and ask you for a donation. And they want you to become as wealthy as possible, because the more wealthy you are, the possibilities of you making a gift to them increases. Not only that, but giving to charity is not easy. It's difficult to give only because you're giving up control of your money, but it's also, how do you know which charities to give to, and what is the best asset to use, and how does it affect you financially? And there's emotional issues involved, there's children's issues. So it's just not easy. And to have someone pressure you into a situation where about giving or buying or anything doesn't allow for a good decision. So what we've done is created an 8-week program where one of the 8 weeks is all about money, and the other 8 weeks is all about estate planning. If you can see in the summary there on your left-hand side of your screen as you're facing it, that's kind of our outline for the 8-week series. Each session lasts an hour and a half. Don, you want to talk a little bit about the chat and how they can participate, because we're not in front of them.
In this particular case, because this is being done with just the two of us, we aren't using chat, and that's why I skipped over that particular slide. So normally when these are done live, we allow the participants to send in notes and questions and everything else. One of the important things that Pete just mentioned, and I want to add to it, the sponsors that we have, and even in the case of ourselves, we don't know the participants. We have no ability to get back to you or follow up or anything else unless you ask us to. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. So there's the Into Your Estate money, which is what we're doing now. And then Into Your Estate is the second one. They're done throughout Orange County, spring and fall, other than this one because they're interesting times. And so that's where we go through. Pete, why don't you talk about, here's sort of the backgrounds of the two sessions and then the mission statement.
Yeah, the top part is really important. There is no commercial or for-profit sponsors. So no one's going to get your contact information and give you a call and sell you a financial product. No speaker is going to receive your name, address, or phone number. Again, if you want a safe environment and to learn this stuff. No financial or insurance product is going to be sold. In fact, we encourage you to watch all 8 sessions of the program before you make any changes. This is completely different than most financial workshops where they try to scare you into making a change. Change is going to cost you money. Change is going to maybe have tax ramifications. Don't make any changes rapidly at all. You understand what frying pan you're in and what frying pan you're going to before you make a change. And then last but not least, no charity is going to solicit you for a donation. All of our instructors are fee-only fiduciary financial advisors, and we'll talk more about that in the program as we go forward. Our mission is to prevent financial abuse by educating individuals to take control of their financial estate and charitable giving decisions. So the hope is that after these 8 weeks, you will feel more in control. And by the way, the longer you stay in control of your money, the happier you're going to be and the longer you're going to live. And that's based on science, not just what financial and estate literacy says. So let's.
What I want to do at this point is to say, if you go into the website that we have listed here, itsyourmoneyandestate.org, which is our website, there's a series of options for you. One is if you click on workshops, select, in this case, it's Your Money. Each of the 8 weeks have their own individual information. So there will be articles, there will be other things, and it is our intent that this video and subsequent videos will also be in this section. So you can scroll through and look at the handout material or a lot of different articles that Pete has gotten and added into this section to be able to follow up on.
Yeah, and each the articles we try to do is to make them pertinent to the topic for that particular session. So hopefully you'll see a video, you'll have a copy of the outline, and lots of different opinions from professionals in the field that are not really readily available in popular literary magazines.
Okay, so we're in interesting times, and obviously with COVID-19 and other things, and with the impact on the economy, since this is spring of 2020, we happen, incidentally, happy Cinco de Mayo, we happen to be recording this on the 5th of May in 2020. Therefore, we're in the middle of this unprecedented economic impact. A couple of things that we just want to cover with you. One, there was the CARES Act that was passed recently. Gave people, depending on their income, up to $1,200 per person. Significant, added into it, unemployment benefits for different people, payroll protection plan for companies that were there, and they give them 8 weeks of protection, if you will, in terms of what's going on. A lot of issues related to that. But a couple things we want to touch on. Before the CARES Act, there was the Secure Act. The Secure Act changed the rules on required minimum distributions from a 401k, for instance. It used to be when you were 70.5 years, in the year which that occurred, you were required to take your minimum distribution. They changed that rule to be 72. I'll use my wife and I as an example. Jean happens to be 6 months older than I am. Last year, she turned 70 and 70 and a half during 2019. She will continue to take out her required minimum distribution. I don't turn 70 and a half until actually right now, right like a few days ago. And I don't have to start taking it until I'm 72. That's going to lead to some confusion. Add to the confusion, because of where we are with the economy, the CARES Act, here's the link between them, said in 2020, you're not required to take a distribution. You can take it if you want it and need it, not a problem. But if you do not need it, you don't have to take it. The argument was the stock market was high in January. If you start taking out, that's when it's set of what your distribution is. Now that the market is low, you would be harmed more. But it's your choice if you want to take the money out. You're not required to. Another piece that fits into that is you can take a qualified charitable distribution, QCD, in place of your required minimum distribution. If you want to give money to charity, this is probably the best way to give it, because it comes out tax-free. It actually never gets in your income. So whether you itemize or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you give money specifically to some charity, to your church every week, whatever it happens to be, this is a great way to do it. You get a hold of your service provider, and they'll send a check out for you. You can continue to do that in 2020, even though you don't have to do a required minimum distribution. You need to be 70 and a half to do a qualified charitable distribution. The other rules that got changed under the Secure Act was that they changed the stretch IRA. It used to be if I had an IRA account and I want to give it to my children, they could take that money out if they chose over their lifetimes. That's now been changed to maximum 10 years. You can take it out once, you can take it out a tenth a year, you can take it at the beginning or end, but in 10 years, you have to have taken it all out. That may affect some of your decisions on financial planning. So we just wanted to raise those. I put in COVID-19 and medical. It's a darn good question. It's sort of unknown in terms of what's going on, but we certainly have headed into social distancing and all of the various rules that implies.
You know, Don, as you move up in income and in net worth, things become more complicated. You know, it's can you take, for example, your qualified charitable distribution from a 401k plan? Well, you know, more than likely not. When do you take Social Security? It used to be in this world where you worked for a company for 30, 40 years and you retired and you got a pension plan, you got a little bit of your Social Security, and things are fairly simple. Today, it's just not the case. And then the question becomes, well, who do you ask about your personal money situation? So it's a complicated world, and if you're confused and don't understand everything, then you're normal. If you think you understand everything, you probably don't.
And to that point, the required minimum distribution, I was chatting with a friend the other day, and they said they hate it when they take that because it raises their tax rate. It raises the charge they have to pay for Medicare. It changes all kinds of brackets for them. And then if they write a check to charity, it's after tax dollars. So they're going, wait a minute, if I just give the money straight to charity, I avoid all those tax brackets and Medicare charges and everything else. And as Pete said, as we move forward and hopefully have a little bit more money, then we have choices. If you need the money, take it, not a question. But if you don't necessarily need it or all of it, then something like a QCD might be helpful to you. So when we look at what we're trying to solve and what's It's Your Money all about, these are crazy times, obviously. What if I run out of money when I get older? Understand, what is stocks and bonds? And people have this, I'm going to do a 70-30 mix or an 80-20 or a 50-50. What the heck is all those things? There's a significant issue, certainly in my life and our times where most of us are, of what's long-term care going to cost and what are we doing? What's the cost of buying an annuity? Who cares what a fiduciary advisor is? Why should I care? You care tremendously, and we'll talk about that. your spouse died recently, what the heck do I do now? All of these things are things we're going to talk about over the 8-week curriculum, some of it today, some of it in the future. But at this point, question is, why do you need to take the course? So we're going to give you a test. When we did this live, we polled the participants, let them follow up. What we're going to do is we're going to go through what would have been in class. We would have handed you 23 questions. We're going to go through that in a series of slides and talk about them to get an idea in terms of where we are. We have done this a lot of times, so we have a very good feel in terms of how most people answer it. But Pete and I are going to go through and take a quiz. So, Pete, which of the following is a liquid investment?
Mineral water,
It runs all over the place, yes.
It runs all over. It's very liquid. It seems like a pretty simple question, but if you think about it, in the stock market boom, when all your different .net companies were doing just off the charts, people were borrowing money to put it into the stock market, or people were putting money in when real estate. Everybody should own real estate. People were putting money into real estate. Well, the problem is that stock market, real estate, assets in general go up and down. And so you really need to understand what investments are liquid. What investments can you turn around tomorrow and have ready access to besides having money under the mattress? So the answer to this is bank savings accounts have the most liquidity. Stocks, that's about a 3 or 4 day turnaround.
Well, and even if it's a 3 or 4 day turnaround, who knows what its value was,
Exactly.
January 31st versus today, significantly different. So clearly a bank savings account is the easiest one to get the money out. Certificates of deposit, you'd pay a penalty if you tried to take it out early. So the answer is D.
Personally, in my own investments account, I leave approximately 6 months as far as liquidity is concerned, where I don't have to touch the bond market or the stock market, and I can still survive and pay my rent, gather my food. That's what that liquid investment is really important.
Good. Why are women more rational or better when it comes to managing money?
Well, you're asking two guys here. Well, let's say the first one, are women more cautious? Absolutely. It's to me, I've never seen a woman take a stock tip from a cocktail party and actually make that investment.
Have you ever done that?
Oh, yes. And they turned out to be disasters. Also, women are more suspicious of sales pitches, probably because they've had a few sales pitches. B, financial service industry caters to men. Well, you got to understand that the financial services industry is like a big car lot, and most of the individuals in it are car salesmen. And so who do you think is easier to sell to? Well, men are. I'm thinking of myself with a remote control. I will sit in front of the television and click through with the remote control, and my wife would look at me and walk away and said, "You're crazy." And the way she watches this is that there's a particular program she'll go to it and watch it fully. So the financial services industry caters to people who make quick decisions. Men are more likely to do that. Do better research prior to making a decision. That's the remote control again. If it captures my eye, I will stay with it. Whereas I think women will stick with their decision and will spend more time trying to do it. So the answer is all of the above.
Good. 3, the Securities Investor Protection Corporation was chartered by Congress to combat fraud.
False. Fraud is normal. Enron, Bernie Madoff, Alan Greenspan said that, the big boys could take care of themselves.
So what was it chartered to do?
It was chartered to combat theft. So let's say, for instance, I go to Morgan Stanley. I'm going to pick on Morgan Stanley, and I hand the clerk $100,000 to invest. And instead of putting the $100,000 into the till, she takes it off to Mexico and runs off with it. And the next statement I get from Morgan Stanley doesn't show $100,000 invested. And therefore, the Securities Investor Protection Corporation would reimburse me that $100,000. Big question is, Don, what do you think? Bernie Madoff, was it fraud or was it theft?
It depends on which side of the legal system you're on, because if it was fraud, that's one thing. If it's theft, then Securities Investor Protection has to protect me. It's a very big issue, and it's one of those interesting legal things. It helps to be a CPA. You're a lawyer, I'm a CPA, so there's a whole long thing there. Yeah. Okay, so the answer to that one is false. What's a capital gain?
Number A is when Congress tilts investment rules to favor the risk. There's a little bit of truth in that. The tax laws are there to encourage social policy. And the social policy is they want Americans to invest in the corporations. So capital gains allows you to have a lower tax rate than ordinary income tax rates. And so in your own particular personal portfolio, if you had a choice between taking a capital gain or ordinary income, you would want a capital gain. So the answer to this, it's a profit resulting from the sale of an investment such as stocks or real estate. Most people don't.
And capital gain, incidentally, is either short-term or long-term. Short-term is less than a year. Long-term is you've held it for more than a year.
And again, that's social policy. They want you to stay with that investment. And if you do, you're going to get a better tax treatment. In fact, a married couple can have $77,000 worth of income and pay zero in income or capital gains taxes. It's just amazing. So you do have a choice. For example, does an annuity give you ordinary income or capital gains income, Don?
Good question, Pete. We'll come to that another time. Question number 5. Insurance agents are required by California law to be compensated through commissions.
The answer is true. I find this rule absolutely amazing. In my business as a fiduciary, insurance is one of the most complicated areas of the financial world. And they're written by attorneys and not to be understood by the regular layperson. And so if I'm trying to make a decision on behalf of my client, I need to understand the policy. And I can't hire just an insurance agent on an hourly basis to give me their opinion as to the value of the insurance policy. Now, if I was a CEO of an insurance company, how would I want my agents to be spending my time? Definitely not on an hourly basis. So the rule of law here in California is, in order to have an insurance agent work for you, they must be compensated through commissions.
Very good. What is it? So therefore they're into selling because they get commissions. What is the difference between a no-load mutual fund and a load mutual fund?
First of all, load means commission. And so a no load mutual fund, and we're going to go through this next week,
Yes.
but a no load mutual fund means that there's no commission to the salesperson who is purchasing your fund. So let's see, no load funds invested in, it's not A. B, load funds are long-term suitable for core holding in a portfolio. That's kind of true, but that's not the definition between them. No load funds offer streamlined procedures that allow rapid trades. That's completely false. D, load funds charge a fee or sales commission on an investment transaction. There's about 18,000 mutual funds plus out there. Most of them are load mutual funds, not in your best interest.
Okay. 7th, for a married couple, probably the best way to hold title and property in California is joint tenancy with right of survivorship.
This question has nothing to do with the It's Your Money course. We put it in here as a teaser for the It's Your Estate course. The answer is false. And the reason why it's false is because of a tax issue. If you have joint tenancy with right of survivorship, yes, you avoid probate, but you may not get what's called a full step up in basis upon death. So the best way for married couples to hold title to property here in California is in community property with right of survivorship or in a living trust. And let me just, a couple of things that since we're in the virus and in this challenging times, what are some real issues that I'm seeing as far as estate plans are concerned? One is that naming people in your documents that are out of state. Travel is not as easy today. They're not close by. So it's really important to look at who have you named in your documents. It becomes especially important when you're looking at your advanced healthcare directive, and we're going to get into some of this, but I hope you're all learning a little bit of what it's like to be on a ventilator. Okay, so can a person that you named be there for you and make that decision, or have you discussed it? The other thing too is that, let's say you named a son or a daughter and they live in New York, and as your successor trustee, can they get back here? Are they involved in the virus? That's, really important. If you haven't completed your estate plan, this is a good time to think about it because of the number of deaths that are occurring. So let's go to something a little bit more pleasant.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go upbeat now. Okay, when you set up a bank checking account, you should ask about, I read this the other day and thought, I remember when we used to get toasters.
Yes, I know, toasters. Yeah. The minimum deposit for free checking, restrictions on no fee accounts, the number of locations, ATMs, all of the above. It's
Okay.
all of the above. When you go into a bank, you're going into a shopping store or a shopping center, and they have all sorts of little shops. They have your teller, you have your mortgage, you have the insurance.
Brokerage.
Huh?
Brokerage.
Yeah, you have your brokerage. And so it's not like your old-time bankers. In fact, one of the first crisis in this country, modern times, was Mr. Keating. And what did Mr. Keating do? He sold junk bonds through his bank, and a lot of people got hurt. So think of a bank as they don't want you to think of them this way, but as a car lot, and they're out there to sell you product. And you should resist and get the maximum of things that are important to you for free. Next one.
Okay, question number 9, and certainly at the time in which we are in with the coronavirus, it becomes even more interesting. Most people after the age of 65 will need nursing home care. Yes
Well,
or
looking at you, Don, and you're over 65, I would say yes.
no?
Most people, and the answer is true. You know, today, we don't stay in the hospital to get better and then go home. We go to a nursing home rehab place. And so the real answer is most people after the age of 65 will need nursing home care for 3 months or less. If you substitute the age of 65 for the age of 85, then the answer would be most people after the age of 85 will need nursing home care for 3 years or less. So it's a big issue today. The entire medical industry has changed. And so we're going to be talking about that medical care planning in session 3, I believe. 5. Okay.
5.
Got it wrong.
Yep, that's okay. Okay, given the choice between saving for your retirement or saving for your children's college, most financial planners say you should.
Well, let's look at the answer. Save for college, your children have more income with a college degree. That's very true. Save for retirement, your children will have more options for paying for college than you will have for retirement. That's certainly true. C, do a 50-50 split. You know, a lot of people do that, you know, that I'm not sure, I love my children and I want the best for my children, so I'll lend them money and make sure they get a college degree, and then the rest of it I'll save. D, discourage your child from attending college. In most cases, it's not a good investment today. I think that's totally false. But I think the answer is B. You need to take care of yourself. It's your money. I've seen under trust babies. You know, I have a child, and Don, you have 3 kids, right? 2. So I feel my responsibility for them was after they became a financial adult, after they graduated from college. From there on in, they're kind of on their own. They're for me to assist them, but my first priority is my retirement income. And once your retirement income is set, then yes, help your children out as much as you can. I recommend people who are in this dilemma, because we're going to find, again, these are challenging times. And I'm talking to different clients, and many of the clients that I'm talking to, their children are moving back into their home, you know, and so, and they have a hard time saying no to their children. And when I say children, the children are between 50 and 65 years old. And so, you know, I recommend a fee-only fiduciary advisor to run some numbers, you know, and we'll get more into this, but financial planning is becoming so important today. Let's go to number 11.
Yep. Key issues to review before you invest are?
How long are you planning on living, Don?
Through this video.
Did you have a number in mind?
No.
No, you don't.
Although it's interesting because my wife continually says any time horizon that we have to look at has to be to 100 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I will be here, or I would want to be here, or I would want to be near me at 100, but I respect that.
Yeah. I recommend people have their time horizon to be 100. Modern medicine is amazing. Every medical institution wants to keep you alive because you're an economic unit. So, you know, but it's finite. In other words, you know, there is a time period. I'm 71 years old, so I've got, if I use 100 as a timeline, I've got about a little less than 30 years. That's how long my money needs to last.
So then it's a question of cash flow and your risk tolerance, how much you're willing to put up with, future income requirements, tax situations. So the answer is.
So I look at my Social Security income, that's a cash flow.
Right.
I look at any pension plans that I've achieved from the places I work, and then I look at my investment account.
Right.
And I look at, hey, what's my risk tolerance? How much of a risk do I want to take to meet my cash flow needs? And everybody is a little different. Nobody's risk tolerance is the same. My mother, for example, I put her in a diversified portfolio in the stock market when she died, when my father died. And she called me 3 days later and said, what are you doing with my money? You're gambling. So her risk, just completely different with mine.
Right.
Future income requirements, your tax situation. So the answer is all of the above before you invest a dime.
And that's really what we're going to do over the next 2 weeks when we look at financial planning. So
yeah, we're going to do that in the third and fourth week.
Yes.
Next week, we'll talk about what is the status of the financial service industry.
Good point. Good point. So is cash the best when donating to charity?
Absolutely false. Cash is the easiest to donate, but you want an appreciated asset. So if I buy a stock in 10 and it's worth $100 today, I want to give that stock to the charity because it only costs me 10. I avoid the capital gains tax and I get to write off the value of the stock at the time I give it.
And as a general rule, I completely agree with Pete, except in 2020. If it's your goal to give away a lot of money this year, because you happen to have it, if you give cash, you can take 100% deduction against your adjusted gross income. And in normal time, you would only be able to take 60%. But,
you know, and that leads me to, I think it's really important in this introduction. We're all in a different kind of situation, and Don is absolutely correct. So when you hear general information that we're giving, we don't know if it applies to your particular case.
yes.
And we're going to be talking about annuities next week. Well, generally, you just want to say no to an annuity. But in some cases, an annuity might work. Or you may have an annuity that you don't want to get rid of because it's paying you more than any other instrument out there. So general advice is general. Even Susie Orman doesn't know your particular circumstances. And to make decisions based on what you heard without getting some expert opinion from someone, just not a good idea.
Which of course then leads us to question 13. Warren Buffett said that the use of financial professionals can detract from your financial success.
And that's absolutely true. 95% of individuals in the financial services industry is about selling product. Okay, it's not about trying to figure out what is the best for you. And we'll go into that much more as we go through the 8 weeks.
Which again goes back to the fiduciary advisor to make sure they're not selling anything to you. They're working with you and advising you. Okay, question 14. Typically, people pay less federal tax once they retire. But with federal debt so high, it's quite possible the tax rates will rise. Future and affect all retirees. Uncertain. This is a long question, Pete. Given the uncertainty, should you invest in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA or a 401k?
Well, it's not only a long question, but it has, like most answers, it's not black or white. It depends. You know, it's C. You know, use a Roth IRA if you're, I recommended a Roth IRA, for example, for my son. He's 31 years old. He's not making a lot of money, so his deduction doesn't amount to much. And so I'm recommending a Roth IRA because that growth period at a 31, he's going to have 35 years of potential growth completely tax-free. And once he starts taking it out, it'll be totally tax-free. Whereas the 401k or a regular IRA, once you start taking it out, that IRA is taxed. So because your money will have the most time to come, it all depends on your personal situation, whether or not you should have a traditional IRA or you should have a Roth IRA.
Okay. 15, historically, real estate, especially home ownership, has produced a better annual return than the stock market.
Okay, we're not talking Laguna Beach here. Okay, but historically, real estate over the United States, you know, if you had to do it, if the answer is false, the long-term average return for the stock is about 10%. Housing prices historically at the same rate, rise at the same rate or slightly higher than the average U.S. inflation rate of 3.5 to 4%. Okay, Trump University and many of these real estate sales programs would like to tell you otherwise, but what they're selling is Trump University, their own course, the books, the tapes, etc. You know, homes today are normally the largest asset in someone's estate. And a home is a wonderful thing to keep in reserve in the event that everything else fails. But a home, first of all, is a home emotionally. And we don't usually count the home in as part of your investment portfolio.
And it's probably one of the least liquid assets you have.
Exactly. You need someplace to live.
Okay, when investing, it's important to follow your instincts, have fun, and your hard work will pay off.
Totally false. The harder you work, probably be the less successful you are. You know, I don't know. I used to belong to an investment club, and we used to go out to a bar and have a beer and talk about investments. And that was fun. And it was designed to be educational and to learn about investing in the stock market, similar to the, you know, the Beer Town ladies and the investment clubs. And that was fun, but it wasn't meant to prepare for retirement. In the financial services industry, and I'm going to use Warren Buffett as an example, hard work, save money, invest in the least expensive possible vehicle, and make as few changes as possible. That's what's going to pay off for you.
Compounding, yes. Okay, an investment portfolio growth is driven by?
How much you save, how long we invest, investment performance, investments cost, all of the above.
All of those pieces. 18, exposure of $100 in savings account earning 2%. After 5 years, would you have?
We would have more than 102. I was going to mention that the next 5 questions, or including number 18,
right,
was put together by FINRA. FINRA, I'm not sure what FINRA stands for, but we'll get into that next week a little bit. They wanted to test the financial literacy of people here generally in the United States. So they gave these next questions to 20,000 individuals across the country, and they gave an additional 20,000 people the same test here in California. So I'll tell you at the end of what the average score was. So the first question is number A, more than 102.
Okay. 19. Imagine the interest rate of your savings is 1% a year and inflation is 2%. After 1 year, would your money in the account buy?
It's going to be less than today.
Right.
So inflation is just a huge issue. And that's why when you diversify your portfolio between equities and fixed income does not give you inflation protection. And the equity market does. So if you're concerned and one of your goals is to protect your cash flow and income from inflation, this is a very important concept to understand.
Okay. 20. Do I skip it? No, I'm good. Interest rates rise. What will typically happen to bond prices?
They will fall. So it doesn't happen 100% of the time, but generally, historically, when one rises, the other one falls. And why is that important concept to know? Well, your bond market is not as volatile or historically as it equities market. So if, for example, the stock market dropped approximately 30% this last time due to the virus, your bond portfolio didn't drop that much. In fact, sometimes it even rose a little bit, and it kept its value. So it's really important to understand how interest rates work, especially in the fixed income area, and that happens to be bonds.
And that's part of what we talk about through this in terms of the mix, as I mentioned it earlier.
And we're going to have an entire session
right
on bonds.
Yeah, that's correct. Because there is a reason why you might want to have bonds as opposed to just having stock, because that may be more speculative for you.
You got it.
Okay, a 15-year mortgage typically requires a higher monthly payment than a 30-year mortgage, but the total interest paid over the loan will be less.
True. It's when you start saving and people show you the eighth wonder of the world called compounding. When you save, that's why people encourage you to save as early as possible to allow the magic of compounding to work for you. Well, a 30-year mortgage works exactly in reverse. It is the amount of dollars that you save between a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage is just mind-blowing. So the answer is true. The total interest paid over the loan will be substantially less.
When I was a kid, somewhere along the way, my father managed to get a printout from a computer system. I don't know whose mainframe he was using, because back then it would have been a big computer they'd been working on. But he had this list that showed all of the payments he was going to make in his mortgage. And when he got a bonus check, he would deposit it against the mortgage, pay down the mortgage, and he would literally cross out the interest he would have to pay in the long run. Maybe that's why over time I figured out you got to pay off your mortgage. I don't know. One of my daughters accused me of that the other day. When I was a child and asleep, did you used to tell me I had to do that? I said, no, but it's not a bad idea. Depending.
Well, that brings up a point too, and we're going to talk more about this in the 8th session, but it has a lot to do with how you grew up as well, and how do you feel about debt. My parents the same way. The first thing they wanted to do was pay off the mortgage, and they didn't feel secure or financially secure until that mortgage was paid off. Yeah. So sometimes we could do calculations and say it's better financially to keep your mortgage. It doesn't, because your mortgage interest is so low, and therefore to pay it off is not financially advantageous to you. But what you forget is the psychological benefit of not having a mortgage. And so you got to weigh the two things together. It's not as simple as just a financial calculation.
That's why we're back to the individual again.
Yeah.
Okay, buying a single company stock usually provides a safer return than a mutual fund.
The answer to that is false. Andrew Carnegie, when I was trying to learn how to invest in the stock market, and my dream at 21 is to become ultra wealthy by the time I was 30.
How'd you do on that, Pete?
I didn't make it. He has it in the book. He has it in his book. He says, invest all your eggs in one basket, or invest all your assets in one egg, and watch that egg very, very carefully. And you could do that if you're young, as you get older, diversification is the key. And so the more stocks, the more companies in a mutual fund, the better off you are.
Okay. 23, last question. Financial advisor registered with FINRA is legally obligated to serve in your best interest.
False. They're obligated to serve in what's called a suitable financial product, suitability. So put suitability on one side, fiduciary on the other side. So financial advisor registered with FINRA is obligated to recommend products to you that are suitable. So the answer to this question is false.
Okay.
So if we go FINRA, the results of nationally, the average correct answer was 3.1. And in California, the average was also 3.1. They evaluated financial literacy with a bunch of other countries in the world, and the United States is the 22nd as far as literacy is concerned. We're right next to Botswana as far as financial literacy. And, and yet we're a capitalistic system, and we're all about money. And yet we're not very financially educated about money. And the hope is that through the 8 weeks, we'll learn a little bit and we'll make better decisions for ourselves and for our family, and maybe even support some of our charitable organizations whose mission that we believe in.
So how would I know, incidentally, whether or not someone is a fiduciary advisor versus fee?
We have a form called Ask First. Do you want to go first to the blank?
No, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Let's go through your.
Incidentally, in the handout material, what Pete's alluding to is in the handout material that went with this when we did this live and is available. There are blank forms of this, and there's an explanation on the back of it. The two that you're going to see are Pete's and mine, and so we'll talk about those. We're not going to go into the blank one.
Okay. So what I found at Long Beach State, speaking to highly educated individuals such as professors and staff, most of whom all either had a master's degree or a PhD, that managing your money had nothing to do with intelligence. And in fact, when I asked as to what was the number one reason, or what is your reason why you chose the financial advisor that you did, and the number one answer came back as he or she was a nice person. And I think it's really important to be nice, especially, it's your money. But, I think it's really important to have some kind of an education in the area. And we're going to be talking about that, because in order to become a, quote, financial advisor or broker, you don't need a college degree. So you just need to pass a particular exam, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So my education, I've got a Juris Doctorate, and I've got a bachelor's degree, and I've got a lot of, I'm education poor. My credentials are that I have the law degree, but I had the 40 years experience in estate, charitable, and financial planning. I've conducted these workshops for over 24 years. Take a look below. What's the difference between a license and a credential? Well, you know, a credential is something that you've taken many years to achieve. To become a CPA, you have to have a bachelor's degree in accounting, I believe, Don, is that correct?
And a lot of other things with it, yes.
Yeah, so that's a credential. A license is just a minimum qualification. For example, the state of California requires, in order for you to get into a car, you have to have a driver's license. So you took an exam, right? And that exam was what, 25 questions. Does that make you an expert driver? I don't think so. It's the same thing in to become a barber. You know, does that make you an excellent hair cutter? I doubt it. So my relevant license is I'm a professional fiduciary, and there's my license number, and you can look me up on the professional fiduciary website to see if there's any complaints or if I have been had any ethical problems. By the way, every profession has something like this. The Bar Association has a membership criteria. The CPAs, I believe, have something similar.
Yes.
The financial planning field has something similar. And anyone who has this license, before you do business with them, you should check them out. Legal service, I do not practice law. Business relationship, I will at all times serve as a fiduciary and put your interest before my interest, or if I had an employer, for my employer. In the financial services industry, I would say between 90 and 95% of those involved could not put true on that business relationship because they would have to be suitable. And that brings it to the most important question. How are you paid? Most individuals in the financial services industry are either paid under what's called fee-based or commissions. I am paid in the professional fiduciary field as a percentage of the value of assets in your trust, and I'm also paid on an hourly basis for some activities. If you're interested, please, I'll be more than happy to give you my fee schedule, and so you could take a look at it. The second part of that is payment will be made by. I'm going to use for an example, let's say if I worked for Merrill Lynch, okay, I would have to say I'm paid either on commission and fees, and of ways I'll be paid. Payment will be made by, I would have to put it in there by Merrill Lynch. Even though you paid Merrill Lynch paid me. So who am I obligated to? Who do I put at the top of my money interest? And it's by who pays me, okay? So in my particular case, I am paid by the trust or the estate. So my only interest is the beneficiaries or the trustor of the trust. I receive no referral fees of any kind, and I believe it's also a very good question to ask whomever you're going to talk to in the financial world, no matter what their credentials or their licenses. Second part, financial products are affiliated organizations, and I put down false, because I don't offer or sell annuities. I don't offer insurance, mutual funds. or I'm not affiliated with anyone who does. The last one is I certify under penalty of perjury that the responses above are true to the best of my knowledge. I can take this ask first form, if there's anything on here is not true, and use it in a court of law. And that piece of paper with that signature is worth its weight in gold. And it also tells you very important things. It takes less than probably 3 to 5 minutes to complete this. And these are the things you need to know, at least minimum, of a financial advisor that you're going to use to control or recommend how you should invest your money.
When we did this, incidentally, when we did this class live, there were several people that were asking along the way, well, should I give this to my current financial advisor and ask them to fill it out? And part of it's a matter of, gee, does that mean I don't trust you or something else? Our answer is absolutely, because if someone is willing to fill it out, they have nothing to hide. If they can, well, gee, well, why do you need this or something else? But there's something wrong in this relationship, and therefore, absolutely, you should take the blank one that came with the handout and take it in and say, hey, fill this thing out for me.
Yeah, it's not your financial advisor's money. It's your money. You're the employer. They're the employee. You're absolutely right, Don. The number of people who are afraid to hand this somehow, that they're being discourteous if they ask their financial advisor to complete this. This is not confidential information. This is, this is your money that you're going to be paying them.
And what you do is you tell them that you're taking this seminar and that Pete said you can't get a certificate for completing it until you have this form filled out and signed. Therefore, it's his fault, not yours, that you're asking.
There you go. It's all my fault.
All your fault.
Sounds like a marriage.
Yeah, it's all your fault. Okay, let's switch to the next one. Mine.
Go through yours, Don.
My ask first form. Yes, I have a master's degree. I also have been a CPA for 30 years. I do not practice accounting in the traditional way. I don't do tax returns. I don't sign off on people's financial statements for companies or whatever. I don't do that, but I'm very, very numbers oriented, as Pete will tell you. Yes, I am licensed in the state of California. There is a difference in having a license and being current. In my case, I have a license. I also keep that current. I could stop being current, say that I'm retired and I don't care. In my case, I choose to stay current, which means I have to do continuing education and other things to keep myself up on what's going on and what's involved. A few years ago, ironically because of Pete, my wife and I decided we were going to sell an office building that we had. Company had changed. We didn't need the building anymore. We realized there would be a significant capital gain on it. And that was going to, because we invested very little 20-something years ago, made good opportunities in terms of what the building did, but it meant that we would have tremendous capital gain. Pete had mentioned doing a charitable remainder trust. Being the bean counter that I am, I analyzed the heck out of it and learned an awful lot about charitable giving over the time. We did our charitable trust. We've done other ones linked into that, and became very interested. And a lot of people started asking questions of how do you do this? So Pete had asked me to become the financial advisor, the philanthropic advisor, I'm sorry, for financial estate literacy, which I am. As a part of that, there's software that they use called Credential that does a lot of the simulation of what you will get for taxes or income or whatever. I decided to go ahead and complete their course, so I am a certified gift planning associate on the software, proving that I really am more and more of a bean counter. But it means it's an interest to me, and it's an interest in how to help people. Pete has mentioned before, we think charitable giving is a lovely thing. It actually statistically proves that you will live longer if you give money. It's an interesting thing in the charitable giving field, to how to figure that out. But I do that kind of work because I enjoy it. I certainly do not do legal advice. I am not a lawyer. My business relationship is strictly to the individual, because that's who I think is most important. And in doing these seminars and teaching modules within these courses in the It's Your Estate, I teach the charitable giving module, for instance. I'm paid, in theory, I'm paid $200 an hour, but I don't think I've ever billed anybody anything. Because to me, so the first hour or more are free, because to me, it is helping the people. And you'll see a form in a couple of moments that if you have questions about charitable giving or something with it, fill it out and send it to me. I'd be happy to send you back a simulation and take a look at it. There's no fee. We'll get to that in a minute in terms of what's there. I do not sell annuities. I don't sell insurance, mutual funds, or anything else. Have no interest in selling any of that. I'll do my own investments with advisors that we have, but it's to me, it's the individual that's the important part. And as Pete has touched on, others, and the week 2 module on annuities and financial services, we'll talk about the fact that it's a sales game. Pete likes to refer to this as a used car lot, I think.
Don, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
One is first of all, I want to publicly thank you for not only you have joined the board of directors on financial estate literacy and literally have become our philanthropic advisors, and you are a bean counter. But the most important thing is that what the course hopefully will do for you is get you to explore and do some number crunching. And that's, issued by, if you see it on Don's thing, Crescendo software. Well, Crescendo software allows you to crunch those numbers. What will be my income tax deduction? What income taxes will I save? How much income will I receive over my lifetime? It allows you to explore the numbers to see what the actual result is. And in some cases, giving money away in this type of situation could actually be financially a greater reward for you than just selling an asset outright. But we'll get more into that later. I love having Don be part of us, because we don't care what charity you give to, or whether it's your own charity, and we'll show you how to do that as well. But he certainly adds that component to financial and estate literacy. Let's go to, you signed it.
Now I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
One of the things Pete's mentioned, Crescendo, and it isn't that we suggest you sign up for that. Heaven forbid, I would never curse anyone with doing that. I run this Crescendo software for people and say, here, this is what you want to do. Let's look at these various scenarios and options so that you don't have to burden yourself. If you want to sign up for it, you can. I did. But on the other hand, if you're like, no, I just want to see what this means. I mean, as an example, we would have paid well over $1 million in capital gains on the building. We were very lucky from that standpoint. By doing the trust instead, I got a $900,000 tax deduction. But yet, in the end, whatever's left goes to charity. That's an interesting issue for your children, and it's one thing to talk about, and there are options in looking at those things. But that's what we cover in Into Your Estate in the charitable giving module. But if people have questions of how do I do this or something else, that's what we're here to help do.
We're not going to go too much into the charitable area in the It's Your Money course. Most individuals are not interested in charities. In fact, my mother's told me that you are my charity. So, and a lot of people believe that. The key issue is that the financial services professional, CPAs, attorneys as a whole do not know the philanthropic area. So very few people do, and we're very privileged to have Don on board and as a resource to you. Thank you, Don.
Yep. So in terms of the schedule where we are, this is the week of the introduction. The second week is annuities, mutual funds, and financial services. Simply because of the way the recordings had gone in the first two sessions, we've chosen to redo them. We are currently, as I said, once along the way, Cinco de Mayo, it's the 5th of May. So this Friday coming up, we'll be doing Financial Planning 1, Goals and Your Assets. The following week, we'll be looking at Investing Money. key issue, as we've talked along the way here, talk about medical care planning, caregivers and insurance and the cost of medical issues that you're going to face over however many years. Then the split between bonds and stock is important, and recognizing how all that works. And then basically the last session is what we do to ourselves when we try to look at investing, and the mind and what happens and what all's going on. So Pete, you want to make any comments?
I'm just pleased that we're able to do this in this time of crisis, and please don't make any rush decisions.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
deliberate.
So I had said along the way, and in the handout material, this is there. This is the form that I just did as a mock-up in terms of if people have questions or thoughts or something else about charitable giving. You know, I have this much money, I want to do this with it. I want to do this. I want to help my children. I want to help whatever it happens to be. We can go through those kinds of simulations, if you will. These are the kinds of questions I would ask someone. There's an email address on the bottom of the page. There was another, the same one or a different one at the front of this presentation. Either one of them, either fill out this form and send me a copy of it, or just send me an email with these kinds of questions, and be happy to help and fill out information for you. So,
and that's the other thing too, is that because we can't interact with you as you can when we're doing this session live. Don's email is down below. My email address is
at the beginning of this presentation.
In the beginning of the presentation, and it's also on my Ask First form.
There you go.
You know, we'll be happy to entertain questions later afterwards. One of the things I was thinking about, Don, for example, on the annuities, we had many individuals afterwards still wanting more information on
which
annuities.
Is why we changed it, and we'll do that when we do that one in the next module.
Right.
Yes.
But what I was thinking about is that if there is more than 2 or 3 people who want to ask questions about one particular area, i.e. as annuities, maybe we can do a Zoom meeting just with those 3 or 4 people.
Absolutely.
After the session, and let the others go or leave the meeting.
Very good. So we wanted to go through, this is week 1, re-recording of that one. We appreciate your being here, and we will put this on, hopefully on the website, and we're going to do recordings of the other sessions as we go along. And I thank you very much. Say goodbye, Pete.
Goodbye, Don.
Bye.